Last week we bound our little signature, and I showed you how all those signatures can fit together to create a journal. And whether your journal is big or small, you will get to create anything in it. We are also looking at geometry and the beautiful, beautiful structures that come together through it all. I often talk about the flaws or the things we believe are flaws, and the difference between a flaw and flow is literally that radius line there, the one that turns the A into an A. Now, if you take that line and draw a circle with your compass, create an inner circle, and then use that radius to create consecutive circles. Every time it touches the line, you just move the needle over and draw another circle. As you continue around this radial movement, you start to see a seed of life forming. This seed of life, if we continue it outwards past that barrier we drew in the first place, that becomes the flower of life. And in the flower of life, we can superimpose the fruit of life. And when we connect those center points, we reach Metatron's cube. And when we have the flower of life, we literally have the building blocks of everything in existence. And because we have that beautiful structure now, we also get to understand how the structures form of every experiment Dr. Emoto created. Those experiments came together because of the flower of life pattern that exists in the universe. The 6 petals radiate around a center and create the most breathtaking crystal. Drawing it yourself will give you the best understanding of how these shapes interact with each other and how they form the petals of the flower of life pattern. It's going to feel confusing in the beginning because nobody has showed you how to do this. Nobody has taught you about this beautiful structure that forms when we create circles that cross and touch each other. You will make a few mistakes, and that's all right, because every time you redo it or attempt another version, you will have deeper and deeper understanding of how the flower of life works. And much like those flaws we initially thought we had becomes the thing we flow into, just so you will learn how to flow, how to let the compass do its work, and how to be part of the chaos we sometimes create for ourselves. Now, we've gone over this in the previous lesson, and I don't want you to fixate on all the obstacles or problems. We are moving forward as we've discovered the lighthouses in our lives, we've created the islands that come together, and where the lighthouses shine their light for us, and we've also learned to shine our own light. But how does this fit into the world, into our reality, and into the things we can fix? We notice it in waves, and we notice it in the plants. We notice it in seashells. And the structure becomes visible the more we look at it. That golden ratio appears in everything. In the fish in the ocean, in the frogs that jump on land, in the dragonflies that hover above the water, and in the spread of a butterfly wing. No matter where you look, even in architecture, that golden ratio continues to show up. And it's not just old or modern buildings, it is showing up everywhere. It's as if we are returning to what is more natural, what is more in line with the human consciousness and what we need to experience on this earth. Really fits in together. And while our creativity can blossom and flow into anything, we also have the option to choose not to flow. And when you stand up and walk away from something that feels a little bit too difficult, you only cause more difficulty down the line. From the geometry of the measuring of Earth to the rolling petals around the center, and even the seashells in the ocean, we have so much to learn about how all of these facets fit together. Now, with geometry, and I know geometry isn't everybody's cup of tea, there is a rhythm, a beautiful repetition of shape, of size, and of coinciding circles. It's like more and more of the stress releases. Yes, it might be a little bit stressful in the beginning to get some of these things going. Is that the middle? Yeah, that looks like the middle. But I can promise you that once you've released the idea that geometry is difficult and just focused on drawing one circle at a time, you will feel that rhythm. And every time that rhythm becomes part of the way you do things, more and more things will become easier to do and easier to practice. Now you'll see I'm leaving a little bit of a gap there. So everywhere where I'm making my mark, I'm leaving a little bit of a gap because I don't want to be 100% accurate. I just want to create and play along and see what comes from this little practice. So I started off with that first line, and all I'm doing now is adding repetitive circles, not hoping for an outcome. I'm literally just playing here, seeing how all these circles fit into each other, and if I put my compass needle down and extend the compass to another point that I've drawn or poked already to see what comes out of that picture. Now, this is where your imagination can come in. You can now connect some of these points. You can try and see if you can see shapes in it. And where the line crosses, another circle. Now, I'm not going to get into the name. The problem is we're trying to do it perfectly when we should really try and discover the thing we are trying to do. So let's go back to this one. I just drew a line. I don't even know how long it is. I'm going to draw a circle that is as big as the line is long, and if the line isn't that long, just make it that long. Then taking half of that, and while my compass is still in that same hole, draw a circle, and then go to that outer edge and draw another circle. Where the lines cross, we do another circle. Where that line crosses, another circle. And where the line crosses, another circle. Now, I'm not going to get into the names of things or what everything means or any of those preconceived things. I just know that I created something delightful and pleasing at this very moment. You'll get the flower of life. But even in that, you could pick any of the petals, any of the inner triangles, any of the shapes, and recreate something geometric. Draw a line. And on this line, I'm going to again draw a line. And on this line, I'm going to draw a circle with that old measurement, and a second circle, and a third circle. And each of these will become a shell. We are going to paint them as well. Now that one, for
Here,
example,
in the first one,
I am going
let's
to
create a
make
second circle
a
by measuring
mark,
out
and on that
the
mark, I
radius
want
and
to
then
half that
half of
circle.
that. So
So I'll
I want
just
to
draw
make
it
a
closed,
smaller
get to
circle
the
right
half,
here,
and
and
on
on that outer
that
edge,
outer line,
create another small circle.
just make a few
Now I
more
have no
little
rhyme or
circles.
reason for this
So I'm
specific
just figuring
measurement.
this out on my
This is
own.
just me
I'm not
playing
following a
while I am
tutorial.
recording.
I'm not looking at
So
reference
this
pictures.
part
You
isn't
can,
planned
of
out
course,
at all. I
open
am
up some
simply following my
reference
own,
pictures.
let's call it intuition, and taking you along to see what I create. Now here we have to create those curves that you see on a seashell. And they need to flow like a rope and also connect with the previous line you did. Now, again, I don't have a seashell in front of me. I should have really had a seashell to use as a reference, but I'm happy with that one. In the second one, I'm going to measure out more or less the same height as the entire circle and make my little mark and make the same mark at the bottom. And I think that is about the parameters. I don't want to go higher than that, and I don't want to go lower than that. Otherwise, I'll end up going into that previous one. So in the very center where we started, I'll make a halfway mark and draw another circle there, and then close the circle on that line and create a smaller half moon. Do the same at the bottom, and let's see where this one takes us. Again, I should have really gotten a reference picture. But I'm not worried because I have looked at my seashells in the last 24 hours. So I'm feeling fairly confident about how this one should look. Not that it will be exactly, but it's going to be close. And I'm going to use those geometric outlines just as a guide. And yep, there we go. Already disobeying all the rules and trying to figure out how to do this by myself. So, my logic says that those curves need to look like they belong together. And yeah, it's right here where I think I got a little bit lost, but it still looks like a seashell, so I'm just going to go with it. And for the third one, I'm looking to create one of those snail type of seashells. And for that, I'll need a couple of concentric circles. Yeah, I think the word is concentric circles. And I'll do them about a centimeter apart. Again, no rhyme or reason. I'm going to use those as a rough guide and create a spiral. And every time I cross that line, I'm going to move it to the next line. I don't know how to explain it while I'm busy doing it. But creating that spiral is what we're looking for. Now, I know myself, I'm not going to be happy with this one until I redo it, but I'll give it a little break and redo it in a few minutes. All right, I'm going to get some colors together here. I'm thinking of using a blue and a pink, just because that's what's already mixed up on my palette. And this is fun. It's supposed to be playful. It's in our sketchbooks. So I'm just adding blue on the one side, and I'm going to come back in and add a little bit of pink on the other edge. Now I'll add some pink on this edge, and where they mix, they'll create like a violety purple, and that is all right. This is going to be one of those dreamy watercolor shells. It's one of our first practice pieces, and I'm happy with that one. In this second one, I'm just going to use the exact same pink I used on this right hand side. Let's keep the pinks on the right, and adding a little bit more color than I need, but I'll spread it as we go along. Mixing up some yellow right now and going to add it on the left hand side. It will blend with that and maybe create oranges, and you'll see the watercolor push and pull each other as they meet, and that's part of the creative fun, is seeing what results you get. So I don't want to spend too much time on detail with this. I just want a little bit of wet in wet, colorful lines showing this shell's curvature, the shape as it bulges. Right, tiny little marks over here, maybe a few on the other side, even if it's the same pink. The brush has lifted some of that yellow, and it will make the pink look different. Yep, I like that too. Maybe some more, like a deeper pink in here, and adding some more of the pink in those lines where the folds are, and just spending a little bit more time on this one, trying to define those edges and curves and helping the design along a little bit. Don't want to overdo it. You'll see I'm touching very lightly to make sure I don't put a whole blob of paint like there. I was just about to prevent the blobs of paint, and then I did it myself. So things like this will happen, and you just need to go with the flow. And if it's bothering you too much, you can lift it out or just leave it. And now I'm looking at the top one and thinking, a little bit more detail there, because right now it's just looking messy. So I'll do some curves and wavy patterns, maybe a little line to outline that curvature. A little detail goes a long way. Now, I'm really not liking this bottom snail, and I'm going to erase the whole thing and just start again. That hole is still there where the compass went in, so I can still use the exact same measurements, but I just needed to look more
voluminous instead of this little tight rolled up thing. So again, just making two consecutive circles here. I guess the measurements, and that's fine. Just so we can have a base to start off with. This time I'm going to start here on the left hand side and create that opening where the snail will poke his little head through. And I'll go around making curves of a little roughly edged snail. How I'm trying to figure this out for myself, but when I reach that part where the snail comes out, I'm going to keep my finger there. That's where I'm going to transition to the middle circle right there, so I don't turn this into another tightly woven snail, and go around, and when I get back there, I'm going to aim for that center circle. So curving into the center circle, and then making that last little curl there. So that construction line, or the construction lines, really helped to guide me there. I wasn't going blind or guessing like the first time. So some textures and a couple of lines here and there. And this snail is looking way better than that first one. And I am really happy to see that the eraser has helped here. Right, we are going to continue the whole pink theme, and I just dunked my rinsed brush into that pink. See, the brush itself is full of water, and then I'm dipping the tip in the pigment. That will give me pigment on the edge, but water near the center. So I can, in one stroke, create that edge and go all around while the point touches the pencil line and the center of the barrel just deposits water. That's a really easy, almost like a cheat code way of working with watercolors. Now, as we're working in words, I'm just thinning out the pigment and then adding more concentrated pigment onto the line itself. I do get a lot of texture variation like this, and it's also a fun way to just explore and experiment a little bit. Now, a little bit of water here. Sorry, a little bit of water in here, and melting some of those harder lines where I don't want them, and then bringing in more texture and depth with more pink. I'm not going to add a lot of color in this one. This one I'm going to keep pink and radiate those lines out and just create freely. Make sure it follows the curvature of the shell, and that just gives it that dimension and depth and um, volume like the previous shell. Every time you put that curve in the line, you are showing direction, and that direction in this case is curving into the center where the snails, I think the belly button is. Anyway, let me know if you are having fun with the snails. I'd love to hear and see what you come up with, and make sure we follow our hearts here instead of following a set of rigid instructions. Just create the types of snails and seashells you like, without fiddling and being too precise on how the outcome should look like. The whole idea is to have fun. And I took that darker violet color I have, and well, it's not violet, it's purple, but it's a reddish purple. And I'm adding a little bit of highlight, not highlight, low lights here, a little bit of shadow, and accentuating the details on this shell. And you'll see, not a lot. The darker we go, the less detail there is. And also, light is also not the predominant one. It's the base color that's the predominant amount of texture and amount of color. These accents, like the lightest light and the darkest dark, are used very sparingly because we don't want to overpower our image with too many darks or too many blank spaces. So a little dot or a mark or a line here and there with the darker color is all you'll need to create some accents and also to show depth. It's where the darkest areas meet that we can interpret a shadow or an indentation. So I'm lightly brushing the brush over these areas. It's not intense because watercolor dries lighter. Keep it minimalist so that we don't overpower the shape. Now for this middle shell, I'm going to use that same reddish violet and bring in a few accent marks, defining the curve and also the overall shape of this second shell. That part that opens up is going to be darker, and then here just a few marks, not too many. I want to keep the yellow accent as the light color and just give a little more dimension here and there. You'll see as I go up it's less. I'm almost just touching the paper. Now look at us. We've created geometric and we've made some shells, and our sketchbook is starting to fill up with beautiful things. I hope you enjoyed this interaction as much as I did. And please go ahead and show me your work. I would love to see how you warmed up, created your flower of life, or just the seed of life, and also how pretty your shells turned out to be.